So welcome to the second episode of our Passion for Processes interview series. So as you know, we launched this series, this program to get into discussions with colleagues, with partners, with thought leaders or customers around processes, process management, process mining. And of course, here I'm looking for people who are passionate about processes. My name is Joseph Blondeau. I'm heading the Aris product marketing, and I set it up this series to get experts' view on how to see processes, to excite what excites them about process management, and also, to understand what did these people do in their past, what did they learn from the experience with process management, maybe some pitfalls, some challenges, or best practices they have learned on the way. So, and my goal will be to have somehow a look into the future of BPM. I'm thrilled to have with me today two guys. They are thought leaders. They are passionate about processes. They are, I would say, our biggest promoter for process management. And they are both presidents of the International Aris User Group. So welcome, Stuart. Welcome, Pieter. It's my pleasure to have you here today.
Hello, Joseph.
Hello. And you know what? You can remember, probably both of you, we had the chance before COVID in the past, to meet on site, to have nice events on processes, on process management, to have these fruitful discussions while looking at presentations. So I hope we can get that back soon. But as of now, we start digitally and we start the discussion today and connect today on processes digitally. So what I would like to start with, because people may not know you both, I would like you to tell me a little bit more about your background. And if you allow, I would like to start with Pieter, because he was heading the Aris user group a long, long time. He's now retired and he just comes back just for us for this interview and to talk with us a little bit about processes. So can you introduce yourself, Pieter, please?
Yeah, my name is Pieter Walraven. And indeed, the last, I think, now 7-8 years, I was president of the International User Group. But if going very far in the past, I'm a chemical engineer from education. I started at Heineken and I worked there for almost 30 years, as well in the production, as well in the IT side as a quality assurance manager. And then I moved to Friesland Campina, which is a large dairy company, and I concluded my career there as a project quality assurance manager. And from that, as you can imagine, if you're a chemical engineer and you end up in IT, those are two different things. But the common thread is processes, and they always have been my passion, to be honest. That's a short introduction. Indeed, I'm retired now since the beginning of this year.
But you still strive for processes, I can see.
For sure. It's all processes.
Great. And I heard you hand over this presidency of the Aris user group to Stuart. So I think that's a chance to get some insights on your CV, Stuart, and that you tell us a little bit more about your background.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's Stuart Trott. I'm the head of business process governance and methodology at Yara International. We're a fertilizer company in Norway, actually global fertilizer company, but based out of Norway. Since 1st of January, I've taken over the reins from Pieter, who did a sterling job in managing the international user group over the years. Unfortunately, the last 2 years, we haven't been able to meet physically, but it's been no less of an exciting journey. And we hopefully get the opportunity to thank him in person later this year. I started in Southern Africa. I'm originally South African, and I was in financial services as a business analyst. Moved from that into the aerospace industry, and then finally I've landed up in the chemical industry in Norway, for where I've been for the last 8 years. Aris, been an Aris professional, if you like, for the last 15 years of that time. So quite a bit of experience across a few different industries, and looking forward to many more years in this particular line.
Thanks both. I think that was good for a short introduction. And as I can see, so you are both passionate for processes, but how did your process journey really start? Because you said, Stuart, 15 years. Pieter, you mentioned that as common thread between chemicals and IT, it's the processes. So how did it start? Maybe you want to give us a heads up, Stuart.
Well, I was trained as a business analyst, and of course, naturally, part of the job in writing functional specifications is analysis of processes and the way people work, and of course, working on projects that aim to improve processes. So it was a natural progression, I think, from there into business process management, which is basically just focusing in on one of those particular aspects from the business analyst world. And I found it quite an exciting place to be. I was involved in a project way back when at Nedbank in South Africa, one of Yara's customers, where we did activity-based costing using ARIS, and that was an exciting project. So I had my really early introductions back in the 90s already to ARIS, and then got more into it later on when I became a consultant, and then moved into it full time from roughly 15 years ago.
Okay, Pieter, from your side.
My background is indeed is chemical engineering. But then more or less applied into the process industry. And Heineken, of course, is a very large brewery. And you can say, well, the craft brewing and Heineken itself. Now, Heineken is a major brewing industry. So there it is always that you have to improve your processes and to make the processes more effective and efficient. And also to get to learn more about how the processes itself work. And that is from a product point of view. But if you look to how the business is run, then I was involved in Heineken and ISO trajects of processes, projects. As a training manager, I was involved in abroad by improving the processes, and later on in IT, which is mainly administrative, but also automation. Yeah, it's again processes. So it's always my common thread, what I said already, it's processes. And that started also, like Stuart, 15 years ago, with ARIS, and getting involved in ARIS as a tool to document. Before that, you did documentation, paper-based, VCO, Word, whatever you have. But ARIS is really a tool in which you can document more properly your processes. And that
also dive in, I guess, through analysis, be able to actually run simulations, and all of that is very powerful in terms of what it brings to the BPM world.
Yep.
And talking about that, you mentioned improving the efficiency of the processes, optimizing the processes, which is mainly our goal when we start a business process project somehow. But how do you think, or why do you think that processes are really crucial, to transformation initiatives, to operational excellence within your different industries? I think it's also exciting to listen about these different industries. So what's the crucial point about this process management?
Well, let's say everything what you do is a process. It has input, you do a certain activity, and it output. At the end of the day, sometimes certain activities do not add value to the company. They are inefficient or ineffective. They can be because that's from an historical point of view, which at that time it was very well, but now in the modern times it is not. Well, that is something you have to find out. That is what you have to measure. And so it is not only documentation, but it is also measuring. And that is why I think process mining is so extremely important, because that shows you how the process, real time, is executed by the people, by your staff. And by doing that, you get insights. And if you have those insights, you can improve your process.
And I can add to that. We found that in the absence of good as is, business process modeling and business process governance, large programs and transformation projects are bound for failure. We've seen it in our own organization where, there was no solid as-is foundation to build on and to actually have a proper gap analysis, and those projects were doomed from the very start. So, this can cost an organization a lot of money if it's not done properly. And it's a worthwhile experience. I mean, Pieter, you alluded to using it for documentation in days gone past. It's still a very important aspect. But of course, now with the addition of process mining, you're able to actually dive into the data in your transactional systems and actually have deeper insights into how your processes are actually operating and being operated, and all the variation, which is all the costly aspects of it. And trying to eliminate waste and so forth. But yeah, it's tools like Aris and process mining have really helped us to have better success on our projects and transformation.
Brings a lot of questions to my mind. Just to confirm, indeed, I read a study recently that 80% of transformation initiatives are failing in general. So, and it is due to the fact that they are not process orientated, but it's also due to the fact that people are not involved enough. So process management and process mining, of course, are really about, communicating, change management, about people. What is your experience on that?
For me, that's a crucial thing. So transformation, as Stuart also said already, it's looking from an as-is perspective. Now, many times, or transformation projects, why do they fail? They are from a managerial point of view, and they look from an overall, and they have a problem. They cannot pinpoint the problem, but they have a problem, and they want to have something different. But this is a to-be situation. In change management, it is always important to go from an as-is to a to-be. If you don't know the as-is, you have no clue what to transform to get the objectives you have as a manager or as a C-level executive. That is actually crucial to get from a process mining and transformation point of view. And your question was, because I lost now my question.
It was about connecting with the people. But I think that was important what you said, so fully fine. But your connection with the people.
Change management. Involving people, that is my experience, also from the past, is involving people from shop floor to executive level. And why it is in most cases, it is a little bit overlooked on the shop floor level, because management thinks, that's a little bit, general thinking for me. They think they know what is happening on the shop floor, which is not always the case. They do not know how the shop floor is working. My experience, and it is really a learning experience at Heineken, when I was working in the production, and we did re-engineering of installations, is to involve the operators in the re-engineering. So you're not re-engineering systems, basically, because you have the knowledge and the skills, and you know how you have to design installations. That doesn't mean, as a designer, that you know how to operate installations, how to work with it. And that is why you need to involve people on shop floor level, through all the ranks in your projects. And have them, if you involve them, then your transformation and your change management process goes much smoother. Because if you have a linking pin to the shop floor, they feel also responsible for the output. If you are not involving them in a transformation project, they are not aligned with your objectives, and they will resist the change.
I have to agree with you, Pieter. We've seen that in our own organization. We're fairly new to the process orientation journey. I mean, we're a manufacturing organization, but and been involved with manufacturing processes for a very long time. But from a business process point of view, we've had so many failures where people just have not bought in. As you say, you have to involve everybody from the lowest end user right up to the management or the C-level executives. It is usually easier to pitch to management the benefits of process management and process governance, but actually get it all the way down to the lowest level can be a challenge. And strong change management activities around projects and so forth are essential in getting that message out and showing the benefits of being involved right from the very start. People take ownership of it, and when they feel part of it and they see the benefits of it, and it's measured, it's communicated, you've got a much better success rate.
That would be a best practice,
fully
right?
endorsed.
So
For
ownership.
sure. For sure. Ownership is key. It's crucial. Ownership and accountability.
Yeah.
They go hand in hand.
You know what? That brings me to some generic question, but I think it's highly relevant, because in the past we've seen process modeling and process mining as different disciplines. You know, you were looking at your as is situation, and then at the same time you were maybe modeling, or you were designing the future states. But now it all comes together. I would say, luckily. How do you see this development on the market or in your specific project? How do you think it will, support your transformation initiative, supports really this change management, this governance, making sure that it works all fine?
Well, I mean, we've got a massive transformation project on the go right as we speak within the organization. We're moving to SAP S/4HANA, and as part of that journey, it is looking at how we are actually working right now, looking at SAP best practice, and then how do we get there? And of course, process mining is one of the tools that we're using most actively now to actually dive into our operational and transactional system to see how we're actually performing these processes. Where's the costly variation? Trying to explain where the variations are, and then how do we bring it back to a standard or a best practice type process and move forward with that. And yeah, the challenges are definitely there, but we have the tools now to actually help us make a success of this transformation project in the organization. It's also highlighted the gaps that we have in our process framework. Having tools like process mining in place also help you to discover process maybe that you didn't already know of, or variations that you didn't already know of, and actually document those and make them part of your framework. So it's a very powerful tool in the arsenal of any organization that wants to dive into the actual real live data of how their processes are being operated. I think back, we used process modeling more for documentation purposes, compliance purposes. We had auditors in that wanted to see, how you actually performed your job. But nowadays, it's more about having, dashboards and real live information where you can, at your fingertips, dive and really go right down to the lowest level of detail in terms of actually where the problems are and how you can actually address those. And I think that's become quite critical in this day and age, especially where things are more digital.
I can only endorse what Stuart is stating.
That's just perfect.
It is extremely important. I was involved already in the early days of process mining already in 2008. So that's already 13 years or 14 years ago. And then it was process mining and process modeling was separated from each other.
Yeah.
And I think these days in the development of ARIS is really a critical thing is that the two are now combined with each other. So from the past, we can design something, we can implement something, which we did in the past. Stuart and I also were heavily involved in SAP implementations, but they were always from a design perspective and then implemented, but never looked at the execution itself. Because
exactly, the follow-up and the monitoring, and how do we actually use the live data.
And the feedback from that was not looked into in those days. Today, by having much more capabilities on data analytics and data gathering, you can do it reversed. Actually, now, these days, what was mentioned in the past, re-engineering and blah, 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 you can now really do re-engineering of what you are doing at this moment, and also looking if those processes are efficient, yes or no. And the combination that you look to the processes and then basically you have your new design, you make your new design and you implement, and you can again execute what you have implemented real time. Is this now effective? Yes or no? And that is a major step forward. I also see that will evolve much more in the future, near future.
I think just to add to that too, there is tools like simulation, for example, also add to this ability. We can quickly simulate things, and then we have live data from sandbox types environments where we can actually pull that back in and see how those simulated processes are going to behave in the real environment. In the past, we had test data, which maybe wasn't all that great, but now we actually have live data that we can pass through a simulated process and actually, and actually make good decisions based on that. So it is very powerful. And of course, there's all sorts of trend analysis and so forth, so that we can really get close to best practice. Let's put it that way, by implementing all of these things together as a holistic solution.
Yeah. I think that all makes sense. And as you just mentioned, with simulation, you're able really to see into the future, to do some scenario analysis, scenario planning, basically, and that helps. I would like to come back to that discussion in a minute, because you also mentioned compliance. And also, I think this relates a lot to process mining, making sure that processes are compliant and conformant. But I want to give us a short break and have a short game in the middle. So this game is called This or That. Yeah?
Yeah.
And you can answer very shortly. You can, add some personal insights or stories about it if you want. And I will start with one question that just came to my mind when you introduced yourself. Stuart, is sun or snow?
Definitely sun. Definitely sun.
For me also.
I'm living in a cold place, but I still escape to the beach or to the sun as often as I can.
He's a South African, so it's only sun over there.
You can't take the African out of me, that's for sure.
But Norway is such a nice country, but indeed, sometimes the light is not the best.
It's very special. Yeah. We have a very short summer, but we do enjoy those warm, sunny months. And of course, we have midnight sun in Norway in the summertime, which is a completely different experience. 24 hours sunshine. So, but definitely the winters are cold and dark.
I had that last summer trip to Norway, and I wrote to you, and it was like, okay, it was 11 in night, and I was thinking, okay, it's 8. Oh no, it's not. So that's really weird. That's really cool.
It is. It's very hard. It's very hard to live in that type of condition, I think, for a long period.
I can imagine. Yeah. So, Pieter, you also had sun, right?
Yeah, I'm a sun. I don't like winter.
Cold.
Okay, understand.
So I like to go to Italy or to the south of Europe, and although even there it can be cold, but it's more sunny and more nicer than here in the Netherlands. But also the sunny weather in the Netherlands is getting better. So
and you have the beautiful flowers in the springtime as well. And I mean they need sun to reach their full potential. Eh?
So this discussion brings me to the next question. Why not beer?
Why not beer?
Wine
or beer?
Oh, wine or beer, yeah.
I saw the question, and that is very difficult for me. But I'm moving at this moment more to wine than beer. But of course,
I'm definitely the wine fan.
Love.
Definitely, yeah. You've got a beer history. You come from a strong beer producing.
But I like wine as well.
Definitely. I'm a wine fan through and through. I come from the Cape in South Africa, wine growing region. It's got a rich history of 400 years. So, yeah, wine for me. Every opportunity.
So the French woman in me likes that. So let's switch to one which is more business related. Process standards or process variations?
That's a good one.
Difficult one.
Managed variation, yes, but standards, there's definitely a place for standards, and standards help you to manage the variation.
Yeah.
Same for you, Pieter.
Yeah, for me it's also. And so let's say you can have variations, but then what Stuart is saying, the managing. So limit them, which means don't open up, because then it's getting chaos into an organization.
And costly as well. Yeah.
Then morning or evening?
Morning, definitely.
Hey! One after the other. Stuart.
I'm a morning person. I can get up at 5 in the morning and be, excited and happy from the very first minute I get out of the bed. But I definitely I can see the attraction of the evening as well. Although I don't see much of it because I'm usually too tired.
Pieter?
I'm an evening person, so
Well,
absolutely.
you're the perfect fit together. You have the whole day.
I love having a cup of coffee outdoors in the summertime, listening to the birds in the early morning, watching the squirrels, that type of thing. That's always good for me.
Very nice. BPMN or APC?
That's mixed for me. I think BPMN. I'm in principle I'm in favor of EPC, but also that has its drawbacks.
Yeah.
And BPMN has also its advantages, but has also its drawbacks. And I see those are two standards. And to be honest, you see it also now in the tooling. They are merging together. And I think EPC or the setup of EPC combined with BPMN will be a much better standard in the future.
I have to agree with you there, Pieter. Although I'm leaning more and more towards BPMN purely because it's an open standard that everybody is familiar with, whereas EPC being more proprietary. But yes, having been trained as in EPC from the very start, it is more powerful for me. But I have a lot of pushback from my end user community as well, that they find them difficult to understand and difficult to follow, especially when they're quite complex. Whereas the BPMN sort of reminds them of swim lane diagrams in Visio, which people are comfortable with. You can simplify EPC, of course. But of course, if we want to talk with external suppliers and consultants, BPMN is the way to go, I guess. And maybe the hybrid of both of these together is the way forward.
Okay, very nice insights. And last but not least, but that brings us back to the normal questions and not into the game anymore. Risk or compliance?
Well, I'm a quality assurance manager, so I'm looking to compliance. That's very simple. You always have to take risks in certain business activities, which is inherent, but you have also to be able to control those risks, and the control is your compliance.
Yeah, I underline that as well. I mean, we model out our risks as well, but it's all about compliance. From day one, we've been using BPMN to actually model our processes out for compliance purposes, and audit purposes. And yes, we manage our risks as well, but the focus is definitely on compliance.
To come back to the question on standards or a lot of variations, if you would like to have compliance, you move into the standard processes. Yeah. Because the standard itself, and you run the standard process, means you are
inherently
compliant.
Yeah.
To what you have agreed.
I think I work in a strictly regulated industry as well, so it's all about compliance. I mean, it's our license to operate.
Yep.
And that brings me back to the process mining topic, because also there, looking at the running processes, how processes run right now, also enables you to make sure that your processes are running compliant, conformant with your guidelines, but also your regulations, right?
Yes, for sure. For sure. And I think the external auditors are asking more and more these days for deeper insight, and not just looking at glossy paperwork when it comes to models and so forth. They actually want to see the raw data.
Mm.
Let's
actually help to
visualize that. And also in auditing for how to run a project or how to implement an SAP system or whatsoever, you have certain methodologies and controls in place. Those are the standards. What is important is that it's not only like with ISO, you model or you document something and then you think you are in control. That is not the case. So you have to look back, what is the evidence, and show, let's say, every auditor will come and they will ask, show me the evidence. You state like you're working like this, show me the money that you are working like that. And there back process mining or information, dashboarding, data analytics, all those kind of things are coming up and becoming more and more important.
Yeah.
But controls should add value to your process. A lot of controls do not add any value. They coming from the past. They are to minimize the risk, and your appetite for risk, you have to analyze and say, this is a risk which needs a control. Because if it goes out of control, I lose my license to operate, or I'm in deep shit. And that is something you would like to prevent. And we have a lot of companies in the last period, even today, which are heading to that situation that they're actually not in control.
Yeah.
And I think, if anything, this global pandemic has highlighted that. Yeah.
Showed also that we are in many aspects not in control. Even the government is not in control on those kinds of things.
True. Continuity.
Yep.
You just mentioned value, Pieter. I have a hard exercise for you both now. If you would need to sell again to your management, process management, in 1 or 2 sentences, what would you tell them?
I find it a difficult question. Selling business process management is an extremely difficult thing, and part is that you cannot sell it. It is, for me, it's a kind of belief. I believe in process management, but also senior executives should believe in process management. And my experience, if they believe in that aspect, in managing processes, they understand that their business is actually a sequence of processes, then they are the supporter by itself. Now,
and you
that
need
is
them
actually
as
your
supporter.
that is your selling, your selling point, or your target is to find those people who have an understanding on process management on C level. But if you are trying to sell something to a C executive and say this process management is extremely important, your ROI is 300%, they will say, yeah, fine, but show it to me, and I'm not going to invest in it because first I need to have this evidence from other implementations. And that is not believing in process management itself. So find your evangelist or in the organization itself. That is one, I think, and I've seen that in the past. And these C executives have no problem in investing because it's part of their strategy. They believe in that in long term.
So executive sponsors is key for you.
Yeah, actually find your sponsors in this.
Yeah.
And try to find, if you want to sell this, try to find some burning platforms in your organization. If you have a burning platform and a manager who is in the shit, and he realized that then he is more willing to follow up, to listen, and to take it up and being supportive, because it also helps him then in solving his little fire or burning platform.
I have to agree. We had a tough job selling this to the C levels, but what we did was we were fortunate enough to be able to run a small pilot project with a very sort of focused ambition, and very quickly demonstrated that we had saved the organization multi-million US$ in terms of just optimizing or standardizing a process, a repeatable process. And of course, word quickly spreads. You can't have better spread when there's success and when people see success. And of course, the neighboring teams start to feed on that, and words then go up the chain that this is important and we need this. But then again, we mentioned it earlier. We're in an industry which is heavily regulated. So of course, by its very nature, for compliance purposes, we need to have strong documentation, and naturally, BPMN is the tool that we needed to use to get to that point. So I think it comes from both directions. Demonstrating it clearly in a small pilot, if you like, or in a small case, and actually using that success then to build and take it forward. A good evangelist and C level does help. Somebody that buys into it, somebody that understands it, that you can take by the hand, they're your biggest promoter. And then, of course, there's no problem in opening the checkbook.
Cool. Yeah. I do agree. And when we see projects or company where the executive sponsorship is missing, then we know that sooner or later there are going to be problems, and they're just going to cut it somehow. So fully agree with you. You mentioned regulations, compliance, and that brings me to one of my last points is if I say sustainability, environmental and social protection, or we call that green BPM, what do you associate with that, and how do you think it will develop in the future?
Well, as a fertilizer company, our mission statement, is to feed the world and protect the planet. So those are really lofty goals and ambitions. I think green BPM is definitely going to be something that we're going to have to look at in a lot more detail not in the coming years, but in the coming months at least, in order to reach these goals of ours. I mean, essentially for me, green BPM is actually analyzing your processes with a view to sustainability, making sure that your resource and inputs into your processes are used optimally, and that you're trying to eliminate waste wherever possible. We've always been living this lean type of approach, and Pieter, you know this from manufacturing. We've always tried to do this, but it's ever more crucial now with the current state of our planet and resources like that. So yes, green definitely BPM is a tool that's going to help us to reach these objectives.
What about your industries, Pieter?
Well, in the beer industry, or also in the dairy industry, and especially in the dairy industry at this moment, sustainability is very high on the agenda. Yeah. Also in the beer industry, it is. It's by using your raw material in a very not only cost effective, but renewable, also in an environment friendly, effective. By doing that, and then BPM is just, and I think that is one of the key things for the future, is that processes are linked to objectives and strategy. Now, and green BPM or sustainability is a strategic point and a strategic objective. Like also compliance, health is also extremely important. There are a lot of things which give a certain strategy in the business by the C executives. What you see is strategy is not always linked to the processes, or the link between the two is not there. And I think also by using ARIS, although the ARIS house has that in place, it's rather underdeveloped. So we are now on the execution side, process mining, which is actually execution and modeling and blah, blah, blah. But a link to strategy on what you're doing, your objectives of a company, that's a very thin line between the two. Yeah. And it is also a thing maybe on the previous subject on getting C executives in place, is by showing how you can link processes and KPIs to objectives and a strategy. If you have that in place and you can show that, they are more keen to invest in this, because then they know if I focus on a certain process or I have a certain objective, I know which processes are linked to that objective, which KPIs are linked to that objective, and then I can start steering the organization on it and focus the organization. Now you see also that sometimes the organizational shop floor level is different focused than where the company itself is focused on or should be focused on. And green BPM is one of those strategic objectives for me.
And that's really funny because you just both described, I'm working on that topic since a certain time, let's say it like this. And that's exactly what we see there, so that it could connect really strategy with the operation, with the execution, and really bring it all together. Because as of now, we see these are different departments, the one that deal with processes, the one that deal with the strategy, the one that deal with sustainability. And we need a single source of truth for that, basically.
Completely not connected with each other.
Yeah. And I mean, you're looking at it also from from within an organizational setting, but of course we need to look broader as well into the broader community and society in general. How do we connect all of these different organizations with these green initiatives to reaching the common goal in the end?
I'm very hopeful on the creation of this ISSB, and I hope they will set the right standards so that every company can really align with that and really strive in that direction. Very well, gents. Thank you very much first, because you took a lot of time for me. And as of now, we are just at the end of this interview. I really enjoyed it. It was a very spontaneous discussion, but I think that's what's make it. So it's really cool. Thank you both. For everyone watching, listening, stay tuned. We will have further interviews in the next month, so it's going to be on a regular base. I'm already looking forward to the next episodes. They are all uploaded on the Software AG YouTube channel, so please make sure that you subscribe there so you don't miss any episode. And by the way, there's another series about BPM, and this one is called Women in BPM, because it's not only about the sake of environment, but it's also about society, diversity. So we decided to get in touch with women in the BPM world and get their views too on how it goes and what they think about it. Thanks, stay tuned, and see you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for facilitating, and all the best.
Thanks to you too.